Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to look behind the reflection to really understand the psychology of narcissism. Now, it's a word we hear all the time, but it actually describes a pretty complex spectrum of human behavior with roots that go back thousands and thousands of years. And it all starts with this one simple, powerful idea. You see, the name narcissism itself comes from an ancient myth, and it serves as this profound cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked self-obsession. So, this story is about a handsome young Greek man named Narcissus. And his tale really is the perfect metaphor for the core of narcissism, a love for the self so profound that it just leaves no room for anyone or anything else. So the story goes, he traveled the world supposedly searching for someone to love, but he was completely oblivious to the trail of broken hearts he left in his wake. Then, one day, he leans over a river, sees his own face in the water, and is just utterly captivated. He was so mesmerized by his own image that he couldn't bring himself to leave. He eventually just wasted away and died right there by the riverbank. This myth, it perfectly illustrates a kind of self-love so intense that it ultimately becomes self-destructive. Okay, so let's jump from ancient myth to modern science. Because in psychology, narcissism isn't just about vanity or, taking a lot of selfies. It's a deeply researched set of traits that actually exist on a spectrum. At its core, psychologists define narcissism with this key idea, a persistent, inflated, and grandiose self-image. It's the genuine belief that you are fundamentally superior, smarter, more attractive, more important, and because of that, you're entitled to special treatment. This deep-seated, relentless need for admiration is really what drives so much of the behavior. But here's the thing, it's not a simple one-dimensional trait. The reality is far more nuanced, and understanding the different faces of narcissism is absolutely key to grasping the whole concept. And the answer to that? A clear, resounding no. Psychologists actually distinguish between two primary forms of narcissism, and believe me, they can show up in very, very different ways. Now, what's really interesting is how this breaks down these two faces. On one side, you have grandiose narcissism. These are the people we often picture. Extroverted, dominant, openly seeking attention. Think of the charming politician or the celebrity who craves power. But then, on the other side, you have vulnerable narcissism. Their quiet, reserved exterior often hides this deep-seated insecurity and a hypersensitivity to criticism. Now, they share that same high sense of entitlement, but their narcissism is often way less obvious, driven more by a fear of being exposed as anything less than perfect. So when these traits are so severe that they just take over a person's life, leading to this profound lack of empathy that causes huge problems in their relationships, at work, you name it, it moves from being a personality trait to an actual clinical diagnosis, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD. This disorder, this full-blown disorder, affects an estimated 1 to 2% of the population, and it shows up more often in men. And it's a diagnosis that's reserved for adults, mainly because, a certain level of self-centeredness can be a pretty normal part of just growing up. Understanding these traits, of course, leads us to the big question. What causes narcissism? I mean, where does this inflated ego even come from? Is it something we're born with, or is it something we learn? Well, it looks like the answer is a mix of both. Twin studies have revealed a strong genetic component, which means there's a biological predisposition. But genetics aren't the whole story. The environment, especially our childhood experiences, plays a massive role in how these traits actually develop. And this is where you can really see how those two different types might develop. Research suggests that parents who put their child on a pedestal, just constantly overvaluing them, might end up fostering that grandiose type of narcissism. In contrast, cold, controlling, or even neglectful parenting can contribute to that insecure, easily threatened state of vulnerable narcissism. So we have these deep personal roots, right? Shaped by our genes and our childhood. But the expression of narcissism, how it actually shows up in the world, is also profoundly influenced by the culture we're all living in. For example, studies have shown that narcissistic traits have actually been on the rise in Western cultures since the 1970s. And this lines up with a huge cultural shift away from the community focus of the 60s and towards a greater emphasis on individualism, self-esteem, and materialism. And that cultural shift, of course, brings us to a very modern question. In an age of curated profiles and the constant hunt for likes, is social media creating a generation of narcissists? Well, the current scientific consensus seems to be no. It doesn't look like it causes narcissism. Instead, you should think of it like the perfect tool. For people who already have narcissistic tendencies, social media provides this incredibly powerful platform to get the status, the admiration, and the attention they constantly crave. It's an amplifier, not the origin. So, with this combination of genetics, childhood, and cultural amplification, it raises a really crucial question. Is change even possible for someone with strong narcissistic traits? And the answer is yes, it is. Positive change can happen. Therapies that focus on developing self-reflection and practicing compassion and empathy for other people can be incredibly effective in helping to manage these traits. But here's the central paradox, the real catch-22. The one thing that's needed for change, honest self-reflection, is the hardest thing for a narcissist to do. It requires looking at yourself from an unflattering angle, and that directly threatens the grandiose self-image they've built their entire identity around. And that leaves us with a final important question to think about. In our modern culture that really values self-promotion and personal branding, we're all encouraged to build and maintain an image. The challenge for all of us, then, is to know where that line is, the line between healthy self-confidence and a self-obsession that, just like for narcissists, keeps us from truly connecting with the world around us.